on, see? What are we
what are we going to do? We were talking about all the interesting stuff before.
We were. We always do this. Talk about like the really cool stuff and then get bored. And
I know a question I was going to ask.
only on Wednesdays.
Only on Wednesdays? What?
I don't know.
That wasn't the question. I didn't want to know what that question was. But no, I was going to ask if you could make any type of 80s movie yourself.
Oh, Jesus.
What genre would you most want to sort of go for? What's the kind of thing that you grew up with? Which you
science fiction. It's got to be in it.
Well, it's
but science fiction probably with kids.
Yes, it would have to be something with kids in it, where kids are the focus, because you always wanted to be the kid.
Yeah, so
when you were a kid.
Because all those films were like the best films. So like
Goonies and all that.
Yeah, Goonies, E.T. What's it called?
Describe
the thing with the Flight of the Navigator.
Oh,
Flight of the Navigator. And what was the one where they found that weird bobble, the big ball thing? It's like this big energy ball, and they built like a little. The Explorers.
Explorers. Yeah,
they built this little spaceship that went inside it, and then they flew out and they found this like alien spaceship.
That was awesome. That film was awesome up until the point where they got to the aliens.
Yeah, it was just sort of ended, just as it was getting really good.
Well, yeah.
But I just loved the whole thing with the
everything
kids
up to that point was genius. That wasn't a Steven Spielberg one, was it?
I don't know. I don't
think it was.
I can't. Jesus, it's so random now. But like all those films, really, even to an extent, like. Man, my brain is gone.
Well, Stranger Things was sort of a love letter to that.
It was, yeah.
Thing,
it was
really.
all of that, yeah. I enjoyed it. It was all right.
Stranger Things.
Yeah, I have issues, but
I just wish they'd rounded up the entire series rather than it having to be continued.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was it was all right. I thought it was hanging too much on the 80s nostalgia.
I thought
it was one of those things. I thought if you'd watched it without all of that, if it had been set like now. And it was the same story. The story was like, meh.
Yeah.
But because it was set in the past and it had all that,
it didn't
Stand By Me and all that kind of stuff.
I don't think it lent on it quite as much as the film Super 8.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think Super 8 depended on that more.
But
than
I thought Super 8 was a better, tighter storyline.
Well, I mean, it had an ending. It had a start, a middle, and an end.
It just felt like a
whereas Stranger Things doesn't. It has a conclusion, but I think it would have been better if they'd completely rounded up the story, and for season 2 had a completely different story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe set in the same time period.
Don't get me wrong. I obviously love the 80s and all that kind of stuff, but like, I'm a little bit exasperated with this constant like. Rehashing of everything 80s and going, we're packaging it up as retro and everyone will love it. And it's like, the reason that I love the 80s stuff is because it was better. It's not, I don't need you to dress it up as 80s to make it good. That's not what made it good. It's the fact that the stories were stronger and they were delivered in a better way.
It was ingenious. It was ingenious because it had to be ingenious. They had to be clever with the special effects.
They couldn't do the same sort of things.
They realised that it was the story.
And
story
budgets
that was
were usually really low and stuff. So it had to be smarter. Like Aliens had a tiny budget for what it was. Terminator was virtually a student film. Do you know what I mean? It's like it had tiny money.
I mean, we can go way back to Doctor Who with this comparison. Doctor Who wasn't popular because of the special effects. It was popular because of the characters and the stories.
Yeah. And these are the things. These are why you remember them being good. It wasn't because, I remember how the character wore like a body warmer and it made it better. It's like nothing to do with that. You remember it because like Back to the Future was fucking good, and it just happened to have been made in the 80s. That's the only thing.
I live in utter terror that someday someone's going to say, "Let's remake Back to the Future." I mean, after Ghostbusters, you'd think no one would ever do that.
Sony might. Somebody might.
Well, thank you.
I actually didn't mind the remake. I quite enjoyed it.
Ghostbusters? I've not seen it.
Quite enjoyed it.
I just... Maybe when it hits Netflix or something, I'll take a look in the same way that I waited until Turtles hit Netflix.
Yeah, sure.
I had that playing in the background.
Yeah. I don't think it's anywhere on the par of that kind of train crash. But
Turtles was an abomination. It really
I don't know, I can't really comment. I've not seen it, but like... It doesn't really float my boat.
It was just... It was a bad film. It was a bad piece of storytelling. That it was badly written. The dialogue was awful. The acting was terrible. And I'm told that the sequel was even worse. So I'm not even going to have that playing in the background like I did Turtles.
I don't know. I went in quite open-minded to Ghostbusters and enjoyed it for what it was. It's kind of neat. And it was fun. And to my mind, actually, it opened it up a lot more, which I felt because they'd gone in a different direction with it and made something new that didn't really rely on the other films, that it made it interesting again for me. Because the original two movies are fantastic, don't get me wrong. Absolutely love Ghostbusters films. But because they are what they are, there's like this nerd gateway around it all. It was like, this is what Ghostbusters is, and it has to be this thing, and it has to be the way that it's always been. But now, because they've done this, it feels, when I watched it, it felt more like it did when I was a kid. When I watched it, and you kind of went, I kind of want to be those guys, and that's really cool. And what if it was this, and what if that happened? And you way you used to imagine, like, stories and ideas and stuff from watching films when you were a kid. You get inspired by it, you know? It felt more like that, to watch something that was like, that's really interesting, because it's not the same thing rehashed, and it's a different take on the universe, and that's kind of how I felt about it.
Well, I wasn't angry that it existed, and I certainly wasn't angry by the fact that it was sort of recast as an all-female cast.
No,
I thought that was a genius idea.
Yeah, I literally couldn't give a shit. You know, it's like,
if you're going to call something Ghostbusters, you can't just do a remake. Oh, you can't remake it, and you can't just do a remake. I don't think.
No,
because of the weight.
And they haven't. That's the thing, and I think this is part of it. I think it was marketed badly because they didn't know what it was, and I think that is an issue. It's not a remake. It's a totally different film.
Then why is it called Ghostbusters? If you're gonna tag Ghostbusters onto it, that immediately forges a connection with the previous films that have been there.
So you see, you walk in this difficult line, because if they made it without it being Ghostbusters, everyone would have watched it and gone, "This is just Ghostbusters," because they're people hunting ghosts with futuristic proton packs and laser technology and all that kind of shit. So, like, if you make it without that name, everyone just goes, it's just a Ghostbusters rip-off. But as soon as you put the Ghostbusters name on it, everyone goes, it's not as good. You're in this catch-22.
But there's this simple solution, and that's just... I mean, they gave them the solution to it in the very first Ghostbusters film, where...
with the franchise thing. Yeah, that would have been...
You just have them buy into the franchise.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the Ghostbusters themselves were this dodgy outfit.
Yeah.
So they're obviously not going to give them any information or any sort.
That's kind of nice, and there are some lovely little bits, and I know you haven't seen it, where they kind of nod to the idea that the other films exist, but people just forgot and stopped caring about it. Because there's this lovely bit where they meet, like, the mayor and stuff, and they're trying to sort of hush it up a bit, because the bit in the original film where they have to sort of convince people that this is really happening. The government goes, "Oh yeah, we know it's real. We just don't rather you didn't go shouting about it." And they're like, and it's kind of happened before, and people just forget about it. So if you could just sort of, be
quiet,
less sort of obvious, that'd be really cool. And there's all these lovely sort of nods to the idea of what, of people's interpretation of what ideas are and stuff. It's operating on a clever level in some ways.
I just don't understand why if they're going to call it Ghostbusters, then why not just set it in the same universe rather than try to come up with a new origin again?
Yeah, sure.
I think that's probably what irritated people more, was the fact that they were playing with the origin of the Ghostbusters rather than
I don't know.
Like these people, these pretenders, taking credit for what had come before. I think that might have been where the geeks were getting angry, the proper hardcore geeks.
Yeah, potentially. I can see that point of view, but I'm starting to look at a lot of these remakes in the way that people look at cover versions of songs. You can just like a version of a song. It doesn't have to be the original.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Ghostbusters exists doesn't mean that Ghostbusters has sort of... the original
been diluted in any way, but that I think is what people get hooked up on. They're like, "Oh God, now it's not, it's not the pure form anymore."
But I think people
just like what you like and dislike what you don't, and just.
I think it comes down to people wanting other people to like what they remember or what they like. A good example of this is, as a slight tangent, is Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Would you rather that version of Harley Quinn was the introduction for people for that character, or the original Batman, the animated series version of Harley Quinn.
Well, obviously the animated series one.
Precisely, because that's the better version of Harley Quinn.
Yeah, because I have problems with her as an overly sexualized hooker character.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
It's kind of not.
That is now what a whole heap of people see as Harley Quinn. You say Harley Quinn, that version, the biker slut version, is what people see as Harley Quinn, and you get angry about that. Or I certainly get angry about that because I know what she was supposed to be, and she's not that. And I think when people look at remakes of films, if the remake doesn't cut the mustard, you're worried that other people
get the wrong idea of that character that you cared about.
Which is why we now have to say the 80s version of Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I know. I do get annoyed by the fact I have to preface everything now with the good one. But no, like, you want to go down that road about Harley Quinn. There is an issue in portrayal of strong female characters these days that I have problems with. And it's like, they're not as intellectually delivered as they could be. If you look at characters like Ripley and stuff, it's not sexualized and stuff. She just is what she is.
She's a person. Than...
exactly. But like, if you've got to be a strong woman, mainly in film, if you're a strong female character, you've got to be this seductress, kind of slutty, over-the-top, over-sexed character. And it's like, why? You know, being a strong female character does not mean that. You know, why are these things got to go hand in hand? Why is that? You know, that's just another form of undermining, like, femininity.
I think as soon as someone uses the phrase "strong female character" to sell a film, that immediately negates anything that they're at least pretending to say. Yeah. It's usually as a justification for whatever they're about to do to that character, like make them overly sexualized and stuff.
I think it's somebody told me about a quote that Joss Whedon said. Somebody asked him on a red carpet about why he wrote strong female characters, and he said, because people keep asking me that question. It's like, and it's true, isn't it? It's like, why are we as soon as you delineate a difference, there's a problem.
Yeah, I think
especially because she's a strong woman. What, and women aren't? Have you met women? It's like,
well, I mean, even just referring to like that is then diluting the colour. I mean, you get the strong women, you get weak women. You get strong men, you get weak men.
Yeah, it's just
men.
People.
Yeah.
Can we just, focus on the fact that there are just human beings, and stop getting hooked up on all the other crap.
It can't be used as a unique selling point. As soon as it's used as a unique selling point, that immediately negates what you're either intending or pretending to intend.
Yeah, totally.